style of this launch that we just saw there in Birmingham, in this beautiful new hospital that isn't yet open. The one thing we always know about New Labour, they know how to fight elections. I mean, they had incredibly slick professional campaigns in 97, 2001, 2005. What's happened this time? I mean, the pictures don't work. The wheat field behind them is all strobing and the television cameras. I mean, that's kind of O-level campaign. Make sure something doesn't strobe. And you surround yourself by a kind of Politburo who then heckle the journalists when they ask perfectly legitimate questions.
Well, I suppose it depends who you think the campaign launch is for. I'm sure the party activists who went enjoyed it, and the message from the manifesto got across. If you had a few minutes irritation, well, I think Gordon Brown will live with that.
I thought the point that Nick made there about Brown performing in a relaxed way is quite significant. But I think there's more and more pressure. I say this now because we won't be on air again before the first debate on Thursday. And I think as so little happens during this campaign, more and more emphasis comes upon this first debate. I mean, it may turn out to be an anticlimax, but I see the pressure as being very strongly on the Tories at this moment, on David Cameron. Because David Cameron, we've seen in polls, people give him a hugely bigger charisma rating than they give the Prime Minister. And so, in a sense, the pressure isn't much on the Prime Minister.
Yet, despite everything, the Tories aren't moving away as they should do. This is a more...
Well, let's just look at the polls for a moment, because let me summarise what I see is happening and react. Labour is not narrowing the gap at all, but the Tories are struggling to get over 40%.
Well, they're not getting over 40%, not struggling to, they're not.
They're not doing it.
They're not there. No, I mean it's...
Well, they're struggling and failing to get over 40%.
Exactly. It's pointing to a hung parliament at the moment. You know, let's just go back over the figures. Of course, what this probably means is the Tories might get 1.5 million votes more than Labour. But under our electoral system, this would not be enough to have an overall majority.
Let me tell you figuratively what's happening. When I canvass people that aren't really solid Labour voters, they give you all this verbal, Gordon, the Iraq, whatever it is, their beef is, they go on, and I listen. And then I say, yes, but... if it's the economy, I say, yes, but do you want George Osborne to run the economy? Or if it's more general, I say, yes, but what do you think Cameron Osborne will do for you? And they go, and they pause. And what it is, people are upset with Labour, people think it's probably time for a change, but they aren't yet ready to entrust themselves to the Tories.
But it shows echoes of 1992, and the other way around.
Yes.
People were fed up with the Tories, but they weren't yet ready to entrust Mr Kinnock's Labour Party.
That's what it feels like on the doorstep.
Why are we talked about the polls which aren't showing a clear-cut, substantial lead for the Tories, yet why do most pollsters...
No, that's not true. They're showing a substantial lead for the Tories, but
not
enough to get an overall majority.
Okay, correct, that's what I meant. And I thank you for correcting me, because it doesn't happen very often, and we should say for the moment. But let me ask you this, why do most pollsters think the Tories are going to win? When their polls, and have an overall majority, I mean, when their own polls don't show that.
Well, I don't know, but it very often happens in elections that people, in a funny way, don't believe the polls. I remember this in 1997. The polls were showing a Labour overall majority of 160. And everyone was discounting that, just saying, oh, no, that couldn't possibly happen. It can only be 80 or 100 or whatever. No, it was 160. It was absolutely spot on. And I have noticed this tendency. I mean, I even notice it in you, because I think whenever I talk to you, you think the Tories are going to have an overall majority. Do you still believe that?
But less now.
Whereas I tend to believe the polls. I think the polls are probably just about right. Can I just make one other point? I was very interested in Jeremy Paxman today with Clegg. I thought there was a killer question which he didn't push through, which was, you have said you're going to support the party that has the better mandate. Is that in seats or in votes? Because it's perfectly possible that Labour could have as many seats or more seats than the Tories and many fewer votes. And if the Liberal Democrats believe in proportional representation, they ought to be willing to commit themselves to saying that they would go with the party that had more votes.
But he wouldn't answer that question at the press conference this morning. Did he answer it with Mr Paxman?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
All right. I'll be joining his next press conference in about 2 hours' time, so I'll try and ask him again.
Very good.
Now, we like to think of ourselves